Hello and welcome to Scott Bryson Beyond the Service. Tonight you guys are in for a special treat. I've got a former Green Beret, a true patriot, a friend of mine that I've known for over a decade now, Mr. Ivan Raiklin. Ivan, did I pronounce that right? I'm sorry if I got it wrong, buddy.
You did, actually. Hey, Scott, what's up, man?
Got it right or got it wrong?
It's actually, I think, more than a decade if we were going to go back for a little bit.
Yeah.
When do we have those barbecues over there and out there?
Oh, yeah, that was probably
Western
Prince William County.
Gainesville?
Yeah, that was probably what, 06, 09, so before 2010 probably.
Yeah, it was probably 20 years ago now instead of 10 years ago.
Yeah, I've lost track.
Each other.
Well, I can tell you when we can figure it out is when you were going through. I don't think you had gone through selection or you were just wrapping up or something. When Drew introduced.
Yeah, that was
us.
before. So that would have been before. Yeah, that was before 2010. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it was before or after I came back from Afghanistan.
it was in that time frame for sure. But
Yeah, because I came down to D.C. in 2004.
okay,
And I think our mutual friend came down a year or two later, and that's about when
yeah,
you guys were neighbors, right?
yep. I moved there in 03. I didn't meet him for a few years, maybe 06, I think we met. So yeah, somewhere in that.
Yeah, that's about the time. Yeah,
So
That's
07,
right.
something like that. Well, man, I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. Love your backdrop, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's starting to make some waves.
Yeah.
For those that don't recognize that term, it's retribution. Basically, it's time to punish those that commit illegal acts,
Yeah.
up to and including those that require capital punishment.
Oh boy. Well, we're going to do a deep dive. I know
We're already starting hot.
yeah, we're coming in hot, baby. So before we get into what I know we want to talk about, which is the J6 stuff, and you've been doing an amazing job
Yeah.
with your interviews and stuff. I've been obviously following you on X and everything, and we have another mutual friend who's a social media guy, who we push each other information all the time. Another amazing American. But anyway, just for the audience, because they love this stuff, to us it's probably old hat, but they love the SEAL community and the SF community and the Secret Service and the Bureau and all the things. So can you just very quickly, because I know we're going to get right into the weeds on this thing, can you just give the audience a quick overview of your journey to become a Green Beret and what that looked like and what you learned from that and anything that you want to share about being a Green Beret before we get into the other stuff?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, similar to you, I spent almost a quarter of a century in military service. So it was active, guard, reserves. And over that 25-year period, I happened to become first started as an infantry guy and then upgraded to an intel officer. And from there, did a little time as an attaché in the reserves in Tbilisi, Republic of Georgia, just before Russia invaded in 2008. And then in 2000 and right after that deployment, I basically started, I went to selection again because the first time wasn't quite fruitful. I did what's called a 24-day non-select. Didn't quit, but I had no clue what I was doing. And so the second time around, I was able to go through the selection process, did pretty well and got picked up, went through training, became a detachment commander, went to Central South America during that period of time. And then I'll tell a little story that I've never spoken about in any other podcast. So let's do that.
Let's do it, man.
I'm going to talk about how right afterwards, in that period of time, I was qualified as a Special Forces officer, post-deployment, first one, as a Green Beret commander. And I picked up a position at the Defense Intelligence Agency as a civilian, as an intelligence analyst. But through that process, I went ahead and applied and was invited to go through another selection process for, let's just say, another most people would call it an more elite unit. And I was selected for that unit to go ahead and do the training and enter that unit. But unfortunately, during that period of time, we had and I'm going to use some terminology that, I'm going to keep it professional in this interview, since I normally don't, because I like to call folks what they really are. But a lot of people that listen into these, since you're going to be going on the not preferred platform that censors, I'm going to try to keep it light. So I went through that selection process, and unfortunately, the previous vice president, who later becomes the I don't recognize him as a duly elected president over the last 4 years. But anyway, Joe Biden was the vice president at the time, and then Obama, as the president, essentially decided that the military was overstrength, and then particularly special forces. So as a special forces officer, I was not able to go from the National Guard and assess onto active duty to then join that particular unit. Now, there's a certain set of skills that they're looking for in that particular unit, and I happen to be someone with the type of background and skills that they were looking for. I haven't really shared that ever publicly, but someday it might come out. But essentially, I was in a very unique position to do some really cool stuff on behalf of our National Command Authority in a very unique surgical manner. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to go on active duty to then perform in that capacity after being selected. That was in the National Guard side of things. In my full-time DI civilian role as in the Defense Intelligence Agency, I went through another, assessment and selection process to then do some highly sensitive things on behalf of the Department of Defense. And people can guess what that could be. And so those were, I've had a pretty good run. I had a run as a civilian when I wasn't on active duty in the Defense Intelligence Agency. Also did some contract work when I wasn't on active duty. And then when I was on active duty or National Guard or a reservist in full-time kind of capacity, that's where I picked up a few deployments, like I mentioned before. So Afghanistan, Jordan, El Salvador, Honduras, a short stint in Bolivia for a short mission. Let's see where else. And then I did a domestic mission in Texas with the Texas National Guard when I was with them during Hurricane Harvey. Uh-huh. So pretty eclectic, but much more than just your traditional Guard guy sort of role. Yeah. Not quite as many deployments as some of my friends, like the current National Counterterrorism Center Director, Joe Kent, that had 11 deployments through his career. But, almost half, a little over a third of what he did being in the Guard, almost half.
So now you've got
so that's pretty much my background in, eclectic. So, Oh, but one thing I failed to mention that's pretty crucial to understanding, my thought process and how I look at problem sets and during this podcast as you listen in is not only did I go through all that training that, let's just say, the highest, most selective training regimen in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. So I have that background from an analytic, from a human intelligence perspective, from a counterintelligence perspective and special operations and special forces. But I also, during that period of time, was able to pick up a law degree and then be an attorney. And I've really focused in on national security law, constitutional issues, national security law, personnel security, things of that nature. And that kind of rounds out my 25-year professional career up to about 2022 when I retired. And that's when, I guess in 2020, when I saw the illegally conducted, I got to be careful for you so you don't get deplatformed.
It's okay.
But bottom line here is in 2020, we saw what happened. The evidence is coming out by Tulsi Gabbard, right? And then January 6th occurred in order to cover up what happened in 2020. And we're going to go into those details, I guess. But bottom line is when I saw that happen, it was such an egregious affront to what I experienced as an American, throughout my life and what I'd been fighting for and knowing the Constitution and what our rights were. It was disgusting. Yeah. Scott, it was the most, I don't even know the words to describe how insulting. I'm not one to be offended, but that was close. Yeah. And so when you try to insult me and then you try to physically manifest that insult, and I don't care if you're the government backed by trillions of dollars, you fucked with the wrong motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do.
And so now it's our turn
Yeah. No, I do.
to body check and punish every single person that was involved in those egregious constitutional, individual liberty violations, etc.
Yeah.
So I had to break character there to
No, man,
give
that's
you a
good.
little bit more
I like
authentic me.
I like the Ivan that I know off camera. You do your thing, man. Don't worry about me. I'm a big boy. I'll take my lumps. So we're looking to diversify our platforms as well. So I'm not a one-stop shop. It's okay. I think Rumble will be happy to have our content if other places don't.
Especially on the topics we're about to cover.
Yeah. So before we get into some of the stuff we really want to talk about, we had kind of lost contact. We weren't ever like best friends or anything, but we knew each other pretty well through that mutual friend. And
yeah, and professional respect for what you were doing, and I'm hoping the same.
oh, of
way
course, don't be
vice
silly.
versa.
Yeah, of course, man. But I remember bumping into you at the CPAC. I think it was when I was with Eric. I had gotten promoted finally, and I hadn't seen you in a while. And you were backstage. I think it was the CPAC, and I came up to you and I said, "Ivan," and you're like, "What's up, man?" And it was just really cool to see each other like just that.
Yeah, I got to share that my side of the story too.
Go ahead.
So I'm backstage, just kind of moving and shaking, meeting people, and Eric Trump's there, and there's a couple people swarming around him. I just wanted to say hi and just thank him for everything he's doing for fighting for the country, right? And they didn't have to do this. These are very wealthy family. Didn't have to fight as hard as they did.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm starting to approach him, I hear off to the left of me, I hear somebody saying, "Hey, Ivan," and I look over. I was like, "Well, damn." The only Secret Service person that I know of anybody. And there he is, Scott. I was like, "Scott Bryson, no way, man." Because I hadn't seen you in years.
I know, it's been a while.
And we just reconnected right away.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And I was like, is that your protectee? He's like, "Yeah." And you're like, "Yeah." You mind if I say hi to him? He's like, "Yeah,
great.
go ahead."
He's what a great human being that guy is.
Very classy.
The best. He's a one seat in the
Very
family.
classy,
I mean,
right.
obviously I love 47 too, but I don't really know him like I do ET. But man, Eric and Laura,
E.T.
yeah,
those two are classy.
they're tip of the spear when it comes.
I happen to bump into them several times as well. I mean, I don't have the relationship, obviously you do, but every time I've seen them and interacted with them, they're just so personable, impressive,
Well, and they're
And every time I've seen them speak publicly, and I've crossed paths with them on the Reawaken tour.
Yeah.
They've been to quite a few of those.
Yeah. Well, they're very, this, the audience does too. They've heard me talk about it, but very genuine. What you see is what you get. It's not an act. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
So before we start really chomping at the bit here to get into what we're talking about, I do have a question for you because I've seen it a bunch of times, and I just saw it again recently where James Comey was, he was on one of those talk shows, The View or something. I forget what it was. And he was bragging about like, well, how did you send FBI agents over to the White House? He's like, I sent them. Like, he's just so cool, Do you want to talk for a minute to the audience about how General Flynn just got completely railroaded and bamboozled before this? That was at the very beginning. 4 years before J6.
The short answer to that is, the short answer to your question is, why don't you go ahead and go to the website, flynnmovie.com, watch the documentary. 2 hours later, you're going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know why they went after him at first and then Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to answer your question more specifically, you got to remember that a lot of this is now starting to come out finally publicly. I had done a lot of this research already, and I'd like to say I had a small role in maybe guiding some of these things that are happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in July of 2016, when Mike Pence was decided by the RNC to be the vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump, and I say that way specifically because that's kind of how it went down, is that the RNC decided that was what it was going to be. 2 weeks later, you had Crossfire Hurricane being launched. And I was just reviewing earlier today you know what? I'm going to play it. This is very important. So you guys kind of start to understand. And this is going to go into understanding why potentially January 6th played out the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, Mike Pence is the vice president. And the next thing you know, in his book after January 6th, there's a 20-second clip I'm going to play you. I want you to listen and you tell me what you think.
In 2003, I authored a bill that brought me into contact with a rising U.S. attorney from New York named James Comey. At the dawn of the internet age, pornographers were using misleading domain names to trick unsuspecting internet surfers, including children, to their websites, which had names such as Dinsyland.com. In response, I introduced the Truth in Domain Names Act, which made doing so a crime. An early use of it was the arrest of the internet pornographer John Zuccarini, the man responsible for many of those websites. Comey had led the investigation, and when he appeared on the evening news soon after the arrest, complimenting the new law and commending me by name, my son Michael happened to be watching. "Dad, you got the bad guy," he told me when I walked through the door that evening. In Washington, I made many great friends and found common cause with colleagues from all walks of life.
All walks of life, huh? So he's talking about James Comey, and he's lauding him. He's putting him on a pedestal as somebody that he looks up to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So this is Mike Pence reading out loud his own audiobook, all right, or his book.
Yeah.
And he's saying that. So going back to your question, James Comey sent two guys over to get General Flynn to lie or to get him fired. And this is according to Bill Priestap's notes. This is I think the assistant director for, I've forgotten more than I've known about this entire topic, but he was one of the seniors running that Crossfire Hurricane operation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it begs the question, when Mike Pence was out there, and he's got this pre-existing long-standing relationship with Comey, okay, and then Comey goes ahead and sends two guys to interview General Flynn, is it very well possible that, what's his name? Peter Strzok, senior Russia analyst, a gal by the name of Catherine Seaman, who was married to Josh Pitcock, who was Mike Pence's chief of staff. Is it very well possible that Mike Pence knew, provided top cover, and essentially gave the green light to Jim Comey to continue to remove General Flynn through a particular operation, so that General Flynn would not have he would not have a seat at the table to advise President Trump that he was being spied on, because General Flynn's one of his closest professional colleagues in the military was none other than the NSA director at the time, Mike Rogers, who was the one that called out the illegal spying. Okay? So when you start to peel the onion on all these individuals, you're going to start to see that everything related to the illegal spying, Crossfire Hurricane, the Mueller investigation to cover up the illegal spying, the removal of General Flynn, the Ukraine whistleblow scheme that led to impeachment hoax one led by Adam Schiff, the subsequent Fauci-funded lab incident that resulted in Mike Pence running that COVID task force in the White House to usher in money-making schemes hand over fist to then allow 39 states to run their elections illegally, illegitimately, unconstitutionally under COVID measures, to then be able to steal a 2020 election in those 39 states, or at least make them illegitimate, to then force the deep state individuals that I've mentioned so far to run a January 6th Fedsurrection play led by Pelosi, and I argue Mike Pence and Paul Ryan. We can go into details on what that looked like. And then subsequent to that, covered up through an impeachment hoax to Jamie Raskin, because his wife, Sarah Raskin, was a deputy at the Treasury Department, which was one of the 39 individuals that illegally unmasked General Flynn to listen in on his communications to try to find some sort of scheme and theory to go after him to remove him. And then that cover-up continued through the J6 committee in coordination with the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police for Pelosi, Raskin, David Buckley, and Tad DeBias to make a decision on who do we go after politically in order to remove President Trump and his power to be able to even return back into office. Let's go after the Proud Boys. Who's the Proud Boys chairman? Oh, he wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th. Doesn't matter. What about the Oath Keepers? He didn't even enter the Capitol. Doesn't matter. These are political targets that must be eliminated. And guess how they did it? It's one thing to politically go after someone. I got no issue with it. Politics is dirty. As long as you're legal and you remain using your First Amendment, etc., and then basing it on truthful information. Yeah, you can leave out other things. That's politics. But when it starts to get into and continues to get into treason, seditious conspiracy, and a whole range of crimes, to include the COVID mess that resulted in genocide, literally. That's when, like I said before, with very colorful language, you mess with the wrong individual like myself, General Flynn, and many of us patriots, a million of my closest friends that started the process of essentially saying, you know what? Like, we're adults, right? You said, you're a big boy. I'm a big boy. But when somebody else comes into my home and violates my rules and my policies, and they came uninvited, we have a problem. And it's not only in Houston, it's in the entire country, and we're going to reject that. Yeah, just to sum up this segment, that you asked the question of how, I kind of explained why, likely. So James Comey was one of the senior folks that was working, because you got to remember, Comey is a part of that Rod Rosenstein, Bush, Cheney, Pence, Republican crew. Okay? Which begs the question, who's providing in top cover? My analysis shows, and the evidence will show, all roads lead to Mike Pence and those that he's answering to. And I suspect that's going to go to the Bush and Cheney families. Okay? So this wasn't just a radical left-wing op, which raises the question. A lot of things that are coming out right now focus on the December 8th meeting in the White House, 2016. It starts way before then. We're talking about July Crossfire Hurricane, when Brennan was working with his London colleagues, right, and the Five Eyes to start working the op to go out and target 20 plus individuals in the Trump campaign. But because he's CIA, technically he can't go after American citizens. But what does he do? He works with his London station chief, good old Gina Haspel, who later becomes the CIA director to cover up their previous transgressions. Well, and then they work with their liaison partner, MI6, right, to go ahead and start to look into things. I wonder if Azra Turk, the pseudonym, worked for MI6 or CIA that went after George Papadopoulos to try to honey trap him into creating the, and exploiting the Russia hoax. It's all coming out, man.
Yeah. So you brought up something. You brought up a couple things I was sitting here thinking about, and I'm glad you said it. I was thinking about Papadopoulos, but let's just table him for a second. What about I'm gonna be careful how we say things because of the platform, but when Joe Biden was the vice president, the president then, right? And those
the failed vice president, yeah.
The guy that was allegedly born in Kenya, but I'm pretty sure he was born in America. That guy. What do you think, if anything, he had to do with this stuff?
Hussein.
Huh? Yeah. Barack Hussein.
Barry Hussein.
But from Chi-Town. But what do you what do you think, if anything, or how culpable was he and HRC during this whole thing? Because we all know that they thought she had it in the bag. Um, and I've seen some stuff recently where, she allegedly, and I don't know if this email is accurate because you know more about it than I would, but like all these, these emails that got bleach bitted or whatever, I saw a copy of an email, again, don't know if it's real, so I'm going to say alleged, that she sent an email to, what was the lady's name? The DNC chair, Donna something.
Donna Brazil.
Yes, Donna Brazil, saying, fix this, because if this guy this was in like October of 2016. If this guy wins, we're all going to hang from nooses, is exactly what I read on the internet today. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read.
Now, that would have been nice had that taken place. I heard that as well, but I think it's more than just those two individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, this was an entire group of individuals people call cabal, permanent Washington.
Well,
and while it's easy for Republicans to go after Democrats because it's politically expedient, I could care less what political party affiliation or background, whatever they look like. It doesn't matter to me.
No.
It matters the actions that they took. And so that's why I created that initial deep state target list of 350 individuals that was reported on, ad nauseum last year by the radical left disinformation purveyors.
Yeah.
And then I expanded that list to include a lot of staff and additional nominees, where over probably close to 1,500 individuals that were part of some segment of the transgressions. Now, again, let me kind of repeat them. 2016, the 2016 to 17 was essentially the time when they did the Crossfire Hurricane op, predicated on unlawful activity of both political party leadership, the intelligence community, and that resulted in, oh my gosh, we have to cover that up because President Trump won, and that's going to be done through the Mueller investigation. By the way, Mueller was teed up, I suspect, by Mike Pence to be the FBI director, but when President Trump refused, that's when Mike Pence likely contacted Rod Rosenstein as the Deputy Attorney General to get him to appoint Mueller to create this Mueller investigative team to then start to go after individuals that could potentially expose the illegal spying operation that was predicated based on a lie fabrication to go after Carter Page. I mean, I've talked about a lot of this stuff ad nauseum, and I don't want to take up too much bandwidth on this, because what I'd like to do is have a discussion with you about the potential role that the Secret Service, again, doctrinally, or may have played on January 6th. I think that would be a very fruitful discussion, because I kind of know what questions to ask, and you might be able to give insights, again, without any NDAs or violating any rules that you're bound by because of clearances you held.
Yeah.
But just more of a procedural standpoint. So bottom line here, we saw 10 years of escalatory cover-ups after escalatory cover-ups that had, they had to steal the 2020 election. Otherwise, they would have been facing accountability. They had to have a January 6th Fedsurrection because none of us bought the illegal election of 2020. And then they have to cover up the January 6th Fedsurrection and call it an insurrection, and then cover it up through the J6 Select Committee. And then when that kind of failed, and then the House went over to the Republicans, then they transitioned over to weaponize against President Trump and his key supporters, or that they deemed to be key supporters, to minimize his political influence by going to the courts, whether it's Jack Smith, whether it's the Florida raid, which was the securing the Crossfire Hurricane documents that would expose a lot of the individuals that were involved in what I'm talking about right now, the Fonnie Willis case, the Alvin Bragg case. I mean, it's all downstream from the Fedsurrection Cover-Up Committee. And I used to call it the January 6th beloved Mike Pence, or was it Mike Pence's beloved Liz Cheney's cover-up committee? Okay, because Liz Cheney was the one that was essentially protecting the equities of the Pence, Cheney, Bush, Paul Ryan syndicate from being exposed and facing accountability. That was kind of her role. And then Benny Thompson was the low IQ lemming in Congress that was designated to be the face of showcasing the insurrection. Meanwhile, the brains behind the J6 Select Committee was Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff, and then the staff director, David Buckley, which was former Inspector General for John Brennan, former staff director of the House Intel Committee, and then one of the 51 spies who lied along with John Brennan. So they thought this through. Problem is on our side, we lack a bench of high IQ strategists that actually see how all these pieces are moved, or we're just filled with complete cowards. I hate to say we. I mean, these are most members of Congress. I wouldn't even hire them, let alone work for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most members in the government, I wouldn't even hire these people. And I'm talking about to include certain cabinet officials. Okay. So it's up to people like us. Like, how the Carlin joke of, it's a big club and you're not in it. Well, I could care less about being in it. I just don't want it to exist.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to have to bring some pain so that either the club gets smaller or we stop the club from existing.
Yeah. Well,
and no one gets in it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, we obviously, I don't know if there's anything out there that we disagree on politically. I don't think there is really, but there could be a thing or two. But the bottom line is what you're saying is what everybody's like. It's if you've got half a brain in your head, people are saying that it's a uniparty. There's very few, there's a handful of, I guess, what I would call legitimate Republicans. Most of them are rhinos. We all know that. It's party before country. And that just really pisses me off because I was a public servant have been for 30 years. I'm still kind of doing some stuff, but it's like, especially 25 years of that life was with the Secret Service. And I know I protected people I disagreed with ideology wise, but I was still doing a job. And I'm like, man, I hope I didn't waste my whole adult life. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah, no, I agree. You start to come to realization of, well, why was I in Afghanistan? Was I making KBR, money hand over fist? Was that the whole purpose of that exercise? Right? Was I making, why was I in Jordan? And then you start to backtrack and kind of look at the strategic picture and frame and who benefited the most from that deployment, right? And it starts to question folks.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Let's go into January 6th.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Because so the thing is that I feel as though, just before we vector in, and I'm going to give you a reason why I always focus on January 6th and then the whole COVID con. The reason why I focus in on those two things specifically is because the other issues that were created the last 4 to 10 years, I feel as though there's enough momentum with the government officials that we have right now that those things will be resolved, right? To a sufficient level. It might not be an A or an A+, but it's enough for me to say, you know what? We'll get a C out of this administration or better on those issues, and I don't really need to expend my personal energy on it. I only focus on things where I see there's not enough courage, or both political parties and the entire government almost the entire government is in on making sure that there's no accountability for certain topics. Yeah. And those two topics, I would say 90 to 98% of the political class in Washington, D.C. does not want January 6th exposed, because you're going to start to see Paul Ryans of the world and a lot of the leadership in the Republican Party, at a minimum, just coward complicit in it. And they don't want those communications to be out, right? Best case scenario. And then the second one is COVID.
Yeah.
Because if Mike Pence ran the COVID White House Coronavirus Task Force and he was coordinating with Republican governors, right? And many Republican governors decided to shut down their states as well, right? Very few didn't, like Kristi Noem. And then, Iowa governor later opened up a little bit. But at the end of the day, very few states, right, stayed completely open the whole time.
Yeah.
So they're all complicit in the entire hoax. Now, it's one thing to say, well, they didn't know initially because they didn't realize that the guy that replaced Jim Comey, Chris Wray, who happened to be Chris Christie's former lawyer for Bridgegate, and Chris Christie and Mike Pence are pretty tight, right? So there's those relationships. It begs the question of how many Republicans are going to get exposed for the COVID op, right? The COVID cabal and the COVID op. And how many Republicans are going to be exposed part of the January 6th play? So it's this delicate balance of they have to slow walk and limited hangout those two areas. And that's where I personally will apply the most pressure to the maximum on exposing those two individuals. And so I'm identifying and working with as many of the federal, state, and local actors that don't have their fingerprints on those two particular subjects.
Yeah.
And one critical individual that does not have her fingerprints on those two particular subjects in terms of complicity or at a minimum just like looking the other way is guess who? Tulsi Gabbard.
Uh-huh.
And I'll explain why.
Yeah.
She didn't run for re-election in 2020 because that was her last term.
Uh-huh.
So she didn't participate or benefit from an illegal election for herself either, right?
Uh-huh.
The 2021 January 6th play, guess what? She wasn't there because her term as a congresswoman ended on January 3rd, 3 days prior.
Yep.
Okay. The whole COVID mess, right? That was her last term. So, I mean, technically, maybe tangentially, whatever, you could say something, but she was duped along with everybody else in the entire system because FBI was the one that told Jim Baker, the former general counsel of the FBI over in San Francisco, the Twitter 1.0, along with the San Francisco field office, whether it's Joe Pientka or Elvis Chan, to go ahead and coordinate the censorship of anything COVID truth, anything election truth, anything, right? All that stuff.
Yeah.
But there comes a time where institutionally people are now waking up. And that's why I think she's taking the most aggressive stance to expose these things because I'm sure her and her network, their fingerprints are nowhere to be seen on the things that must be exposed that will expose both Republicans and Democrats. And that's why you see a lot of hit pieces on her and a lot of resistance to her activity. Meanwhile, the truth seekers like us are seeing her as she's the shining light. She's the A+ in this administration.
Yeah.
Problem is she has no prosecutorial powers. That comes with Pam Bondi, who's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Not a single arrest.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cash is lauding himself as we got the number 4 person on the FBI's most wanted list. Okay, great. Petty crimes. I'm going after massive full-scale treason here, not just some drug pusher here.
Right. Well, we haven't even talked about, because it pales in, well, I shouldn't say it pales in comparison, but like all the things that you just talked about and all the names you rattled off and the ones that we didn't, because there's a million out there. They don't want
About
the
1,500.
They don't want the Epstein. They don't want the Epstein list coming out either, right? I mean, there's no telling what happened with that nonsense. So
it's pretty clear that most people, when you spend at least 15, 20 minutes on that subject, use your search tool or AI, agent, it's pretty evident that it is a influence, coercion, blackmail scheme to keep powerful people in line. And pretty elaborate. It runs global. Yeah. And anytime somebody tries to use the terms to designate where it's coming from, they get either censored, they get shamed, they get attacked. And most people can't withstand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people.
It begs the question, should we have members of Congress and members of the federal U.S. government with dual loyalties or triple loyalties, right?
Yeah.
To whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's China, should they be agents of a foreign power?
Absolutely not.
With loyalties greater to another nation than to the United States? I argue that's not right.
No, of course it's not.
And I think most Americans, probably to the tune of 90+%, would agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, we
The
could,
only ones that disagree with that are going to be the ones benefiting from it,
of course,
which is
well,
only 1 percentage point of that.
yeah. It's funny. It's funny. It's not the right. It's a tragedy actually. Like we could talk for 3 or 4 hours on one topic. We've talked about a bunch,
Yeah,
and we got a
let's do
lot
it.
more to cover. But it's like how Ilhan Omar. How is that woman? How is she? How did she even get elected? I mean, it's tongue in cheek, but like, why would you even want to be here? You know, if we're so racist and backwards and bad, go home. You don't have to be here. It's insane. I don't think a person with another.
No, but it's not that. It's bigger than that. I mean, you have other foreign interests that leverage that control members of Congress, right?
Oh, of
And there's
course.
so much evidence out there that shows that she does not have U.S. citizenship
Oh.
legitimately
Well, they're just
because
most
it
of
was
them are
based on a
puppets anyway.
fraudulent marriage to her brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not nasty.
But what happens? You have beta cucks in the administration even now that don't do anything about it because
No.
they're scared.
Yeah, they're not going to. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's a comedy of errors. I mean, it's listen. I knew there was a deep state. I knew there was. I just didn't know how deep and how wide. And it's not even a deep state. It's a deep world. I mean, we haven't even talked about the 2 or 3 families that are running the whole world, right? Through the World Economic Forum or the banks and all the things.
Right. That's the global play.
I mean,
We
that's
focus
just
more on
like
the domestic play.
unbelievable. So all these people are shills, man. There's only a handful of people. Now this is where we might disagree, which we're not even going to get into that tonight because I'm not here to name drop, but like, you know, there are a handful of Congress people that I still believe in. Like Tulsi Gabbard, I still believe in her. Obviously, she's DNI. We're both on the same page with her. You know, there might be a guy or two up there that I like that you don't because you know more about it than I do. But like I'm telling you, the bench is not deep. I mean,
I'll list a couple names. Maybe you'll agree with me.
all right.
As far as COVID goes in Congress, we only have 1 to 2 senators, Ron Johnson and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
That's it that want to expose that.
Yeah.
As far as January 6th goes in the Senate, Ron Johnson, maybe.
Mm.
And let's see who else.
What's your take on Jim Jordan?
Josh Hawley.
What? Yeah, I like Josh.
Josh Hawley. And on the House side, as far as COVID goes, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey. As far as January 6th, probably the same too.
Yeah.
There are a few others on the J6 front, like Troy Nels, Andy Biggs. There's very few. On the House side, maximum 40, I would even consider talking to in a respectful tone.
Yeah.
Respecting them.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the 435, they're either just absolute cowards, and I regularly tell them to their face, or they're traitors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Let's go into January 6th, man.
Well, hold on. Yeah, we will. Let's.
Because I got questions for you.
Well, we're not gonna turn the tables too much tonight. We'll do that a different time. But,
Hey.
no. I knew you were going to.
Because I got to ask you about Mike Pence.
Well, I don't know
As
much
the
about Mike
VP.
Pence. I was always on the. You know what? I'm gonna be nice tonight. There's some inside jokes about the Secret Service A team and B team and varsity and JV and all that crap. I'll try to play nice because I have friends all around the world that did different things, and I was just lucky to get to do some different things. But Tulsi Gabbard.
No, but seriously, Scott, it's critical.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We're going to
It's
get to
critical.
it, but I want to ask you this though.
Okay.
Like with Tulsi's allegations about President number 44. I mean, she's obviously. You don't just say stuff like that. I mean, do you think she's going to bring the receipts, or do you think it's going to get shut down before it ever sees the light of day?
She's already brought the receipts. It's a matter of Pam Bondi doing something with it. And really, it's a matter of the White House basically saying, hey, like, this meets the threshold of the following crimes.
Mm-hmm.
There is no statute of limitations for capital offenses.
They'll never.
And
do
so we have to go back to our nation's history. And I think the best reference or precedent that we need to look at is what Lincoln did in the 1860s. Okay. And so it's equivalent to that. I mean, the reason why treason is in the Constitution is because it takes place And while it doesn't get prosecuted often, this is clearly one of those times of what took place. And it was done with a large group of people.
Yeah.
And for this country, I think, to survive and to start to heal, there must be that process of full disclosure of evidence, followed by criminal referrals throughout every single jurisdiction of the 94 federal jurisdictions where there's a hook for the conspiracy, to include every state needs to participate in, state AG needs to also participate where there was a state crime that was committed that's similar to the federal offense that the evidence will show.
Yeah.
And then every county DA of the 143 where there's a element to it of that criminal conspiracy, there must be a full court press. Otherwise, that's what they did without evidence, unlawfully. We can use their precedent as a reminder to say, oh, wait, we have the evidence and let's do it. Was Alvin Bragg a federal officer, a state officer? No. Alvin Bragg was the Manhattan district attorney. We got about almost 3,000 district attorneys that are probably no longer cowards now that there's a Republican House, Senate, and a presidency that can go to town and go ham on these individuals, the 1,500 or so of them. You got 27, I think, Republican attorneys general that can do exactly and even more than what Letitia James did in New York as the AG. Okay? And then in addition to all of that, we can have our version of Jack Smith. Okay? I.e. Pam Bondi, or, for example, Ed Martin. Give him subpoena power. Give him prosecutorial power. If not, then start working with the U.S. attorneys. The 93 U.S. attorneys. They still haven't been all appointed. It's because John Thune. Well, how do we resolve that issue to get these people confirmed? I said on day one, on January 20th, J.D. Vance, as the president of the Senate, needs to sit in the chambers. Nothing moves until every single appointment is confirmed. All 4,000. Has he done that? No. Does he have the power authority to do that? He has the leverage to say, hey, John Thune, nothing moves in my Senate because you as the Senate Majority Leader, you mean nothing constitutionally. You don't even exist. You're the leader of a party of one of the two parties in the Senate chambers. I am the president of the Senate. Let's play chicken. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's the type of power that must be wielded legally, morally, and ethically to get this country back on track.
No, I totally agree.
Unlike the previous vice president,
Yeah.
that facilitated and ushered in a Fedsurrection as the presiding officer on January 6th, and he had his Secret Service detail, and he had his Senate Sergeant at Arms with him, and he had his House Sergeant at Arms with him. Speaking of which, what was his Secret Service detail? What were their names?
What do you mean?
Pence's on January 6th.
I don't know.
Why not?
The names of the actual agents?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know that, brother. I was stationed in Hawaii, many miles away. I missed all the fun.
Because you got to remember that the vice president is dual-hatted, right? And he's triple-hatted on January 6th. So when he's not inside of the Congress on any given day, he's just the vice president. When he's inside the Senate chambers, he's the president of the Senate. When he's in the House chambers on January 6th, during the joint session, he's the presiding officer of the joint session. So when you look at it from that legal construct of a triple-hatted individual, outside of the Congress, he's got his Secret Service detail, right? When he's in the Senate, I'm guessing that his Secret Service detail coordinates with now the Senate Sergeant at Arms, who's the senior law enforcement official of the Senate, right? Paul Irving at the time.
Yeah.
When he went over to the
longer with
House,
us.
he was coordinating with the House Sergeant at Arms, well, the Secret Service was, with the Paul Irving of the world, who's retired down in Tampa. I would love to question him for, I don't know, 30 or 40 hours. And so
Sure you would.
it's interesting to know that if the presiding officer has Secret Service, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, and the House Sergeant at Arms at his disposal, and then the Speaker of the House basically says, hey, we're only going to have 11 Democrats, 11 Republican House members, and 11 Democrat and 11 Republican senators due to the advice of the sergeants at arms and the presiding officer on January 6th, meaning we won't have a quorum. So we're going to run this electoral cover-up by not letting people object. But when they do object, we're going to go ahead and facilitate the breach of the Capitol. So it begs the question, how much did Mike Pence know? Or how much did he direct it? Or how much was he just a dumb buffoon, single-digit IQ, just coward that said, oh, yeah, Pelosi and her parliamentarian told me to say that under Title III U.S. Code Section 18, debate is not allowed in the joint session. Meanwhile, a congressman from Virginia, Morgan Griffith, said that I'm not trying to debate, Mr. Vice President. I'm trying to ask you, how are we supposed to be here in a quorum, basically, when most of us are not able to be on the floor of the House because you and Pelosi decided that only 44 of us, 22 in the House and 22 in the Senate, can be here on the floor. The whole thing was illegitimate, Scott. The entire election was illegitimate. The January 6th joint session was totally illegitimate because there was not enough members of the House and Senate to have it be legitimate because there was no quorum. So while everyone was focusing in on what was going on outside and called it an insurrection, the real insurrection was on the inside of the Capitol, in the House chambers, where there was no ability to adjudicate the lawfulness and object properly or not vote properly for those electoral slates. Oh, by the way, 39 states submitted illegitimate electors because they ran their elections that decided those electors under COVID measures, which violated the state's election law and violated Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the federal Constitution. That's it.
The whole
And then
thing
they had
was
to cover it up.
The whole thing was a coup from the very beginning. I mean, we've talked about it you've talked about it at nauseum on all your platforms over the last
Thousands of hours.
couple of years. But yeah, I mean, the fix was in when he came down the escalator in 2015. It was game over then. I mean, the fact that he got in, I think, I know we're going backwards a little bit here, but I think they were so cocky and just so confident that they had it in the bag that they would have cheated I don't think they cheated in 2016 because I don't think they thought they had to, if that makes any sense.
Right.
And I think
Because they thought they had it completely in the bag.
Yeah.
And then when they realized it wasn't in the bag and they lost, that's when they had to escalate.
Yeah.
Now, they hedged themselves after the nomination, right? In July 2016 by putting Trump's handler, Mike Pence, in place to make sure that, he was handled properly on behalf of the deep state, which begs the question, who's handling this term?
I don't know. I'm to the point where I don't even know if
Have you seen him backwalk on a lot of campaign promises, 180s?
Well, the thing that's really frustrated me, and I want to be very clear with you and with the audience, or whoever, I want to be very clear. I am still a Trump man. I am a Trump man. But I
voted for him 6 times, bro. 3 in the primary, 3 in the general.
I just don't
vote for him again.
I would. I just don't. I don't know if who he's getting the bad advice from and I don't want to talk about Epstein, but like this is an example. It's like, well, it's a Democratic hoax and a scam. No, it's not, dude. That really happened. A lot of really bad stuff happened, and I don't know why he kept. And we pretty much quit talking about it now. But when it was hot and heavy for a week or so, it was like it was just a scam. Are we still talking about that? People still care about. Yeah, people care about that. That people absolutely care about that. It was not a scam.
So
it was
here's
not
the
a
thing,
hoax. I don't know why
Scott,
they're saying that stuff.
This is my analysis on that. So a lot of us are on Twitter, on X. President Trump's not really on X anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So when people say, hey, read the room, Mr. President, he's not even in the room to read it.
Yeah.
So the room that should be read by, at least one of his advisors that talks and communicates with him should probably be, obviously he's got quite a few of them that are reading the faux news room.
Yeah.
Fox News. A lot of people are reading the Truth Social room. Okay. But when it comes to Twitter, they're not really reading the room. In fact, they actually pushed the guy that reads the Twitter room out, right, of the White House. They have, let's face it, a lot of the outside advisors of President Trump, like Steve Bannon, he's not on Twitter. He actually despises Elon Musk, right? So that room is not really read. You got Laura Loomer is probably the closest thing out there that understands and reads the Twitter room. Okay. And so I guess Roger Stone as well, right?
Yeah.
So it begs the question, those individuals, though, aren't with him day in and day out, right? They're only sporadically, occasionally having touch points with the president. So then it begs the question, who is specifically feeding him the information? Well, it's easy to find out, folks, and it's easy to name names. All you got to do is look at, on July 1st, it was published, because it's required by Congress, for the White House to publish who are all the staffers at the White House. There's 404 of them. And then when you look at all the seniors, well, who are some of those positions? You have a White House counsel, right? Gives the left and right legal limits on certain issues. Probably has quite a bit of say in what goes on in the vetting process for particular individuals. Then you have other folks that are responsible for communications and staffing, right? There are two individuals that are crucial to that. And there's an overall kind of leader of what goes on in the White House and decides what gets out, what gets in, what goes out in terms of information, and what comes in terms of information and people and access. So you probably have about 5, maybe 6 individuals of those 404 that have an outsized influence. Use your AI agent to go ahead and get those names. I won't name them. You can easily do that yourself. So then it begs the question of, okay, it makes sense. You have every organization has an organizational task and organization structure. And then one argument is, yeah, that's why you have very organized flow. It's a calm White House, etc. So you have benefits to that. But then you also have to address the counter to that is, are there loyalties that are being represented that run counter to what the president campaigned on and promised? We started to see some of that with what you just said, with the Epstein things. And then there are other issues that came up that became very problematic. One of those issues was, remember the granting visas? Green cards for tech. Steve Bannon came out really vocal, a couple other people, and there was a little internal squabble about that. So it's not really a clear, not everything's black and white.
No.
There's a lot of people and a lot of interests that are inside of the White House and outside of the White House that are trying to advocate for what's important to them. But I think that when you have a minority, just like what we saw with big tech, when you have big tech moguls and giants that are, promote the self-mutilation values and censorship, they only represent maybe a couple hundred people of 350 million in our country, but yet they have an outsized influence. Same thing here. 404 people are deciding the fate of the nation. Now, I get it. At the end of the day, somebody's got to do it. But it's incumbent on us to make sure, like, we voted for President Trump. We have just as much of a responsibility to make sure that he is successful and he is pushing for what we voted for and the mandate we gave him. It's our responsibility to protect him from those closest to him. That's the way I see it. I don't need to get paid. I don't need to get recognized. But if I see a problem, like when you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you see something and say something about certain individuals, they don't like that. And they have a lot of power and they have a lot of influence and they can really damage you professionally, hurt you. But I'm kind of beyond that. Someone has to be. And so the ones that are most viciously attacked by the Uniparty media are those that are calling out the Uniparty the most in a very surgical, deliberate manner. And I get my fair share of attacks. And, sometimes I get a little shrapnel. I got to pick out some of the little pieces out of my body because, is it painful? Yeah. But guess what? No pain, no gain.
Well, you're the man for the job, that's for sure. And I think there's a lot of problems. One of the main problems is that people like me and you who are type A personalities, we served our country in different ways, but we served our country because we have a servant's heart and we want to do what's best for the greater good. Most of these yahoos want to do what's best for themselves.
What's best for the greater good is actually hurtful to me, my individual self-preservation. Right. Honestly,
I know, but unfortunately, most of these people in these positions are. Not all, but a lot of them are beta males, or they got there because daddy's money got them in the job or whatever it was. And I don't know. I've just lost since COVID.
I ain't no fortunate son.
Ever since COVID, I have lost a lot. I've lost just about all faith in the medical industry, and as a result, in the government as well. I think a lot of with the way the 2020 election ended up, the way it went down and COVID and just the blatant, they've gotten to the point now where they're just saying the quiet part out loud. At one point they were trying to hide some stuff. Now they're like, this is what we're going to do. You got to stop us.
Yeah. I mean, why is it so hard to call pretty much every Democrat at this point a domestic terrorist? Just full up, just criminal.
It's pitiful.
Full stop. Or complicit or accessory during or after the fact.
Yeah. It's
facilitating the invasion of our country. I mean, it's just, there's so many crimes that have been committed.
Well,
now one thing I'll say, so I've been kind of blackpilling and being negative about things, but we have solutions and they're pretty simple. And I'd have to say that one of the biggest things, and this is going to get controversial, when the federal government just took over the District of Columbia, the opportunity for upside massive wholesale arrests of these treasonous criminals when they come back in September. Oh, it could be so glorious. I may just have to climax for the entire period of time, if you will, should this take place. And what I mean by that is, to be more specific, as the National Guard is deployed, as the DEA administrator is now technically the acting the Metropolitan Police Department chief, what does that effectively do? If I was talking to the DEA administrator, I'd say, sir, remember that thing on January 6th and January 5th? Well, the Metropolitan Police Department has concurrent jurisdiction over the areas with the U.S. Capitol Police where the pipe bombs were placed, okay? Also, it was the mayor of D.C. that said that she didn't want any National Guard or executive branch assets to assist with policing in the vicinity of the Capitol.
Yep.
Before and during and on January 6th. Let's go ahead and take a look at every single communication between the mayor's office, former police chief Conti, who's the partnership engagement dude at the FBI, still in place, never been scrutinized yet by Cash or Dan Bongino, because they just don't look into these things because they're busy with, going after those that burn Teslas. They're busy going after petty street crimes, right? That should be like a local beat cop that's 100 pounds overweight can handle. You know what I mean? Not in a quote unquote the elite of the elite law enforcement entity in the world. I can say that because I have a little bit of training myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you got a little training too.
Oh, that wasn't dripping with sarcasm at all.
So I'm going to say this, that if they really want to go to town and impress voters like Ivan Raiklin and Scott Bryson and the 100 million plus others that are sick and tired of the criminality to continue, when these members of Congress like Adam Schiff, Ilhan Omar, minor player, but still, you mentioned her. But I would say when Pelosi, Schiff, Raskin, Swalwell, I mean, just even those three, the Schiff, the whole J6 committee that remains, right? The Benny Thompsons of the world. It's time for what Lincoln did. And now that the federal government has the authority to take over D.C. and conduct these arrests, it's time to do those. Now, the argument's like, oh, we don't want to. What if they take over? What's going to happen? They already did take over, and look what they did. The next time, it's going to be even worse. So stop being a cuck coward. I'm talking to almost every single Republican, and almost the entire DOJ when I say that, and almost the entire FBI when I say that. Maybe the whole thing. I don't know. How about actually the whole thing? Because they have failed to do anything yet. Oh, we've done a grand jury, and we're doing kabuki theater on Fox News every day so that people can love our cosplaying as Fox News hosts all day, so that increases the ratings of the Paul Ryan companies of the world, right? That he sits on the board of. Now, we see it. And I get it. You may dupe the 5-6 million viewers, but you don't. I mean, those are followers, right?
Yeah.
You're not duping the leaders that are now stepping up and calling you out.
Yeah.
Meaning the Scott Brysons of the world. Meaning you name the independent podcaster, because we're taking away your viewership, Fox. Because guess what? You are just as complicit in doing nothing and limited hangout slow rolling it over the last 10 years as anybody else. Now, you may have talked about it here and there, but guess what? Your Trey Gowdy didn't do anything. You gave him a nice, high-paid, cushy job over at Fox. And now he's saying, oh, these people just need to be publicly shamed.
Yeah,
you
saw
shouldn't
that.
arrest them.
Yeah.
All right. I might have to scrutinize you a little bit more, Trey. I could care less if you get an R by your name. If actually, you know what? Because I only vote Republican, there's a problem here. Because I always like to clean up my own house first.
Yeah.
Because I want varsity players, like you were talking about. I want varsity A-team players when I'm walking around. And if you're on my team, and if I'm on a team, I'm going to motivate you to the max to be the best legal, moral, and ethical being you can be. And if I start to slip, then I demand that you body check me.
Yeah.
Because iron sharpens iron.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%.
All right.
All right. Now, hold on.
Partial rant complete.
No, that's good, dude. It was
My
awesome.
Raiklin rant is complete
No,
for a few seconds.
It's amazing. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to just end it right here for tonight, because we could talk another hour or 5 and not cover it all. So we'll have to have you back on for a part 2. But I really do appreciate you coming on, because I know you're a busy guy, but I also really appreciate your perspective, because you're not hiding from anything. You're not you're not the typical guy out here doing his thing. And one of the things I like to brag about on my show is I speak truth to power. That's what I'm trying to do, and I think I'm doing that. I want to do that.
Yep.
And that's why I like talking to people like you, because you're a no nonsense kind of guy. You're calling balls and strikes, and that's why I think we gravitate toward each other, because it's like, I don't give a crap that you have an R beside your name. Like, and that's what separates us too, right, Ivan, from the other side? Because if Trump had done any of the things they said he did in 2016 through 2020, I was like, get him out, put him in jail, whatever the case is. But he didn't do any of that stuff, obviously. All the shift stuff that he talked about, the Russia.
He's
Russia,
the most
Russia.
investigated human on the planet.
Dude, if he is guilty
Dude,
of anything, they
squeaky
would have gotten him.
clean.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, I I gravitate toward people like yourself, and I appreciate you having the candor to come on here. And of course, whether it was on my podcast or somewhere else, you'd be speaking truth to
and
power.
boot you
So
off
thanks
of
for coming on.
CommiTube for the things we said.
Do what now? What you say?
And they're gonna boot you off of CommiTube for the things that I said.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'll just go to Rumble and call it a day.
I'll trust you more. I always say this: if you haven't been censored, I don't trust you.
That's fair enough. That's good stuff. Well, listen, brother, it's good,
brother.
It's
No,
good
it's
talking
good.
to you. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having
for
me.
coming on.